Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, children of all ages. Hope you're all enjoying your lovely Sunday afternoon. As you can see outside, the sun is shining, the heat is on, the birds are singing, and hope you're all enjoying your summer so far. So, guys, welcome to Emile's Corner. And this time, I'm going to start off this episode by saying this, and you'll see where I'm heading to afterwards, which will be the main topic of this episode of Emile's Corner. I was driving yesterday, and in my car there I had the Sirius XM satellite radio on, and I was listening to Channel 39, Hair Nation, it's called, which is, for those of you that are not familiar with it, it's Hair Nation is a channel that plays only but glam metal from the 80s and early 90s, to which I'm a big fan of that style called glam metal. And the host, Keith Roth, at that time, he mentioned a name that reminded me of some good memories, and that name was John Corabi. Does it ring a bell? Anybody knows what? Anybody heard of John Corabi? Well, John Corabi became the lead singer at one point of the highly popular glam metal band Motley Crue. Okay, so first a little bit of background with with John Corabi and what led him to Motley Crue in the mid '90s. What was going on is after releasing Doctor Feelgood and Decade of Decadence, Motley Crue was they just wrapped up a big tour, worldwide tour, and the band members, which was frontman Vince Neil, guitarist Mick Mars, drummer Tommy Lee, and bassist Nikki Sixx. They wanted a break, fair enough, from the constant on the road pressures that they had to deal with. So the guys wanted a break, and what they did is they went back to the studio and started recording some new material on a 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off basis. And unfortunately, there was a fallout between Vince Neil and the rest of the band. Some say he left, he quit, some say he got fired, but anyways, Vince Neil was unfortunately no longer with the band. And Motley Crue was therefore without a frontman. So what was happening is John Corabi was the lead singer of the Los Angeles-based band called The Scream. And he read somewhere in an interview with Nikki Sixx in Spin magazine that Nikki Sixx was actually a fan of The Scream, and especially their first album. And John Corabi wanted to reach out personally to Nikki Sixx and thank him for the compliment, so he was trying to do so via the band's manager. And what happened is when he was finally able to reach Nikki Sixx, well, that's where he learned that they were looking for a new frontman. And actually, John Corabi's intentions was to see if Nikki Sixx wanted to join the Scream, but what happened is the opposite ended up happening, where Nikki Sixx and Motley Crue, the rest of Motley Crue, invited John Corabi to audition for the band as a replacement for Vince Neil. So eventually, due to some pending technical legal matters, John Corabi ended up being hired as the frontman of Motley Crue. And afterwards, what happened is the band with their new frontman now joined forces with legendary producer Bob Rock, who has produced albums for Metallica and other big bands, and he's also produced Motley Crue's most successful album called Dr. Feelgood, which was probably their biggest hit. And the guys were starting to record new material, and they were in the studio working hard at it. And this time, they were recording in complete sobriety. No drinking, no cigarettes, no drugs, no caffeine, no red meat. They were being assisted by a personal trainer to get back in shape, and also the guys were pretty serious about this new gig that they wanted to do. I mean, they wanted to do an album that was if not as much, even more successful than Dr. Feelgood. So that's a little bit what was going on, how they were on the road to releasing that new album with John Corabi, which was released March 15th, 1994, 24 years ago. And it's Motley Crue's sixth studio album. It's called Motley Crue. And it features John Corabi, Mick Mars, Nikki Sixx, and Tommy Lee. The album, I found it really good overall. A lot of good songs on there, but I got to tell you right now, it's not the Motley Crue that you're probably used to listening to, okay? It's not the sex, drugs, alcohol, rebellion, decadence Motley Crue that we've known throughout the 80s and up to Dr. Feelgood, the very early 90s there. It was completely different. They were singing world realities, like they had two songs called Dropping Like Flies and Power to the Music, which sing, the 1992 Los Angeles riots. They have a really good hard song called Smoke the Sky, which talks about smoking marijuana and all the debates behind it back then. They also got a really good song called Uncle Jack, which refers to I believe it's John Corabi's uncle, who was a nasty person, child molester, anyway, all kinds of nasty stuff that I won't cover in this episode. And there's also Hooligan's Holiday, which was actually a song being played on the media back then. So just before I go any further, I just want you to hear a sample of one of the songs that's on the album that I think is really good, despite, unfortunately, the commercial failure of this album. It was a complete failure, unfortunately. Real sad. I think it's totally underrated. It should have had much more success. But without going any further, I want you to listen to a sample of one of the good songs on this album. Just listen to that part called Smoke the Sky. Enjoy. Hey folks, you just heard a sample from the song Smoke the Sky on the Motley Crue sixth album. So, what do you guys think? What do you think of the song? Feel free to drop me a line. Feel free to message me, comment, and I'd be more than happy to discuss with you the album, this song called Smoke the Sky, and other songs on the album that I'm about to play more samples a little later on. So you may have immediately noticed that if you're a Motley Crue fan, that this album from the song we just heard is much heavier, simply because John Corabi plays guitar. He plays rhythm guitar. Mick Mars is not the only guitar player in the band, so that's why you feel that it's more massive. And I actually like the sound that it's got. It's considered alternative metal. It's got this deep grunge type guitar riffs in there from Corabi, as well as Mick Mars's talented guitar solos that we hear on the other albums. I mean, he just carries on what he's doing, and he feels that Mick Mars actually stated that he feels that he doesn't have to keep up with a full rhythm. So for him, it was he mentioned it was a great help having John around playing guitar. So a little bit of background. Again, back in 1994, glam metal was extinct. That's it. Glam metal was pretty much out of the market. and it was alternative and grunge music that was dominating all the billboards. The album, when it came out, again on March 15, 1994, it was number 7 on the Billboard 200, but unfortunately, it dropped immediately. It was a big failure. Very sad because I mean you have a great producer, Bob Rock, that contributed to the album. The guys were very clean and sober when they were recording this album. I think John Corabi is great. And by the way, Keith Roth from Hair Nation, Sirius XM channel that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, he stated himself that he thought John Corabi was great. So I don't want to get right now into that little debate where I think I got my own views of a band releasing a new album. Just before getting back a little bit to the music itself, before I play the next sample is Hooligan's Holiday. I really like the way the music is quite fluid. John Corabi's lyrics combined with his guitar and Mick Mars's guitar and Tommy Lee's drumming, I think provide a really really good combination, in my opinion. There is no sudden break of tempo or anything that is out of the ordinary. It's just four guys, just dishing it out and giving some good hard music, that fans of hard rock would be well served to listening to. So that's a little bit more the technicalities that I wanted to touch base on with the music itself on this album. So there you go. I'm going to play another sample now. That's Hooligan's Holiday from Motley Crue. Enjoy that sample, and I'll get back with you right after.
Hooligans holiday. I'm on a holiday. Hooligans, I gotta get away. Hooligans holiday. We're on a holiday. Hooligans, yeah. Woo!
Once again, what do you guys think? Feel free to comment, feel free to message, guys, and it'd be my pleasure to exchange with you on that one. So, you just heard a sample here of Hooligan's Holiday. So, uh, just before showing that sample, I was talking about the music technicalities. Well, I'm gonna give you another sample of Hooligan's Holiday a little later on. I want you to listen to the guitar solo, and once they're done singing the chorus, Hooligan's Holiday, then the tempo changes a little bit, and you hear the heavy riffs of John Corabi and Mick Mars combined, and then you got Mick Mars's guitar solo. So I really want you to listen to this, and just to have a better understanding of what I meant. So enjoy the guitar solo from Hooligan's Holiday, and I'll get back with you right after that one. There you go, folks. That was the another part of Hooligan's Holiday. So like I said, that album, very sad for the quality of music that we've received has commercially failed. I find that very unfortunate. The reasons behind the failure, obviously we mentioned the music change, the change in styles, fans stating that it's not the Motley Crue that they're used to listening to, and I guess that new image and that new lineup that Motley Crue had probably didn't fit with what they were looking for from Motley Crue, which I got my own opinion on this, by the way. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. If you're a fan of a specific band and you've always enjoyed them throughout their careers, and then they release a new album and you automatically compare it to the previous works or a hit album that they had back in the early days that made them famous, and you say, oh, well, it's not like that album, such and such. So, no, it's not good. Automatically, I declared that it's not good because it's not like that album, and it's not the band that I'm used to listening to. I think you're wrong. I'm sorry, but I think you're wrong. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. When your favorite band releases a new album, you need to welcome it with an open mind. Okay. Uh, I mean, again, Motley Crue, it's a glam metal band that have influenced a lot of other glam metal bands. And glam metal was extinct in 1994. It was grunge and alternative. So you got to adapt. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. My favorite band of all times is Metallica, to which I proudly wear a T-shirt of during these episodes. And Metallica, when they've released Load right a few years after the Black Album, which was probably they're the biggest commercial hit ever, the Black Album, which really mainstreamed heavy metal back then in those early 90s. Well, everybody said, what did they just do? I mean, here we are going from the Black Album, which was an icon in heavy metal of the early 90s, to 1995, 1996 with Load, where Metallica has a completely different style and again, a more alternative sound like band. Well, I'm sorry, if you want to listen to good alternative or even hard rock metal products, you were still well served with Metallica's Load. All right, you were still well served. I love Load and I love Reload. There are songs even on Reload that are so kick-ass, by the way. But anyway, that's just a little side note. And I think people should have had the same opinion with Motley Crue. Like, glam metal was dead, and here we are with grunge and alternative everywhere. So for sure, the band is going to change its style. The band is going to change its sound. But with all the changes in genres and the different music markets out there, the band will have to adapt in order to stay loyal to their fans and give them, a good product that they want to hear. So, unfortunately, fans saying it's not the original Motley Crue. Oh well, that's it is what it is. And also, the band had some fallouts with MTV. There was I haven't seen it, but apparently there was an interview where Nikki Sixx just wanted to knock the teeth out of the interviewer for apparently not providing a very professional interview. I mean, oh well, you always get that once in a while. There's a lot of stupid interviews out there, like a lot of interviews that are below professionalism to well respectable bands, and fallout with MTV, and they were also being dropped from Elektra and Warner Brothers, their record labels. So very sad. I think Motley Crue should have had much more success with that album, especially that it was a new concept too. And because of the failure, well, it ended up with John Corabi leaving after this album, and Vince Neil reuniting later on with the band and pursuing later phases later on. So that's the conclusion of this episode, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've discovered something new that might interest you out there. So, Motley Crue with the album Motley Crue that was released March 15th, 1994. Um, New style, new frontman, and hope you learned something new. And I'm gonna leave you with one final sample. Here's Uncle Jack. Enjoy and have a good one. See you on the next one.
Took their